always assumed.
And much of the narrative, and I think probably the fact around the ability to deploy AI at scale is one that is predicated on availability of electricity.
Mm-hmm.
Even Elon, and I've been talking about this for a while on my podcast, but Elon this week is saying, hey, I need a terawatt of compute. Terawatt is roughly the power production or the electricity production capacity of the entire United States. US is going from 1 to 2 between now and 2040. China's going from 3 to 8. And there's probably upside given all the new electricity production technologies that they're rolling out now, which will be additive to that. How much is electricity generation going to play a role in who is going to economically benefit from AI over the next 10 to 15 years? And where is the US compared to China? And maybe where is Google?
Well, look, you're definitely hitting on, what is, when you look at any system, you want to find where the constraint is, because that's what gates the whole system. And you are rightfully identifying the most likely constraint for AI progress, and hence by definition, GDP growth and all that stuff, right? So I do worry about it a lot. But, the answers are, sometimes you run into challenges which are, you have to solve. You're running into physics barriers or something like that. This is not a problem like that, right? We already know the technologies that can work to supply the demand we need. So it's more to me an execution challenge, right? I would phrase the energy problem as it's obviously multifaceted, but I think be it really embracing. We shouldn't have innovator's dilemma in the energy sector, right? So we should lean into all the possible innovations ahead. And there are many of them. Obviously, first of all, people perpetually, I think, will underestimate solar, right? Solar plus batteries will end up being huge. Obviously, the amount of innovation that's going into nuclear, geothermal, all of that are opportunities to embrace, and it's more I'm not mentioning. But I think, upgrading the grid, solving for transmission, permitting to make all of that progress faster. And then actually, I think we may be workforce constrained, to my earlier point, right? I think we are all, if you look at the number of electricians leaving the workforce versus suddenly all of us, and you project out this demand, there's a huge mismatch, right? So literally how do you make sure there is incentives and workforce development to address shortages like that over the next decade will end up being important policies. I think we're fortunate, people like Secretary Wright and Secretary Burgum. They are very, I think, deeply aware of the issue, and I think they are hitting the problem hard. But I definitely think it's solvable, but I think we all have to put our mind towards it.
But for your business today, you don't see electricity constraining growth in the business in this moment or in the projectable future?
No, I wouldn't say that, right? Just for example, we are supply constrained this year in our cloud business, right? And when all of us are simultaneously looking to scale up data centers, right? So we are running into real constraints. The way the constraints play out today is delays in projects because of permitting or not having access to electricians. All of that is realities all of us are dealing with, right? So if this trend line continues, the pace at which we are all ramping up, and obviously for it to continue, we all have to generate the returns on it, and so it has to really impact the economy in a more substantive way, so they go hand in hand. If the trend continues, these constraints will be much more visible, I think. Today, we are all working through these constraints. So I think there are real constraints today, but I expect for us to be competitive with China, et cetera, I think we have to solve these constraints in the near future.
What does that look like then? Fast forward 15 years, the US has 25% of the electricity of China.
Mm-hmm.
Is China just bigger GDP in that moment? Is the pie going to grow for everyone? How do we kind of think about?
The way I've assumed is the US is always, there's never been a time where US just doesn't meet these moments, right? So to me, I look at it and say, it just means that, the capitalist solutions will innovate through this moment, right? That's why people are working hard to build SMRs and nuclear fusion, et cetera. So I've kind of assumed we will meet that moment. And if we don't, or if the lines don't match, I think the conversations will get louder and louder till we meet the moment. That's the way I internalize it.
There's a history of Google investing in innovative technologies and being ignored or being told that they don't make much sense. Good luck. The TPU is a great example. The acquisition of DeepMind is a great example. The investment in infrastructure is a great example. The insane continued investment forever in Waymo is a great example. And suddenly it looks like Waymo's on track to be a $100 billion business, and this is actually going to work. Mind-blowing,